Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Tom Butwin. Welcome to the channel. Today we're just going to talk about some of the specs that came out from Paul Reed Smith on the Silver Sky SE version. Highly anticipated. So let's go right to it. This is from the Paul Reed Smith Instagram page. You can see one of the colors that's available there. January 11th, that's the day that you're going to see some demos. You're going to see full press release and everything else. But we got a lot of information today on this Instagram post. So let's go over some of that and talk about how it compares to the existing official Paul Reed Smith Silver Sky John Mayer model. So we've got some colors here: evergreen, stone blue, moon white, dragon fruit. And it looks like, before we get to the specs, those are the four colors. So right off the bat, that's going to be your defining and distinguishing factor for many people, is that the colors that we have become so used to seeing, Roxy Pink, Mock Sand, the Frost White that I have sitting right here, Dodge and Blue, you name it, those colors are not going to be available in the SE line. So obviously they have to make some type of distinguishing line in the sand for these things. So colors, aesthetics, right off the bat, that is what you're going to see as a difference. So let's keep going over to the specs. By the way, Moon White, really cool. Seems to be popular amongst my Instagram guitar-loving friends. So a couple things to point out here. Body, obviously, still a solid body, bolt-on electric guitar. However, the wood is different. We've got poplar on the SE versus alder on the Paul Reed Smith, straight up version. 22 frets. Obviously, we're not going to change that. Scale length, 25.5 inches. Same thing. The neck wood is listed as maple on both. Now, obviously, there's probably going to be a different quality of wood, a different choice of wood when you look at the $2,500-ish version of the Silver Sky versus what I anticipate being a sub $1,000 Silver Sky SE version, probably $999 or something like that would be my guess, but who knows. So let's go through the rest of the standard specs here on the SE. Truss rod, obviously, probably a similar mechanism to what we have on Paul Reed Smith version here. Well, they're both Paul Reed Smiths, but you know what I mean. The neck shape, now the neck shape is interesting because it's listed 635 JM, which is the neck shape that is also listed for the real version. There has been a change in the neck shape though, and I think it happened in the 2019-ish, 2020-ish range of the original Silver Skies. There's a little bit of a difference in cut. They didn't really acknowledge it in the official specs on the website, but many people have measured it, and I think Mayer has even maybe talked about tweaking it as they've gone along. So it's interesting that they just call it the 635 JM. Not really sure exactly what that means and how it compares to this. However, the other thing I would like to point out is that the fretboard right now looks like you can only get it in rosewood. Now, that's how the original Silver Sky started. You couldn't get the maple fretboard right off the bat. Eventually that came. Maybe that will come in the SE line as well. I don't know. We'll have to see. Now, some of these stats on the width of the fretboard of the nut, the body, I don't have the official Silver Sky stats on those. But what I do know is that the ever contested and ever debated fretboard radius on the SE is 8.5 inches. And as you know, on the Silver Sky, it's hotly debated. It's at 7.25. So I am not a luthier. I love playing this thing. I can tell you that. I have no fretting out issues or anything like that. I know there might be some future maintenance issues with like refrets and things like that. But for me, it plays very comfortably. I don't know how this is going to feel with the 8.5 inch fretboard radius. We'll just have to see what people think of that. The inlays, again, of course, the birds, obviously probably a different material. The headstock, excuse me, the headstock to me actually looks a little bit different. And there is a picture here at the end we'll get to. But to my eye, the shape is just a little bit different. So let's talk about the hardware. Again, Strat style guitar. You're going to get the typical tremolo. Tuners. Here is another difference. Vintage style, non-locking. So on the Silver Sky, you do get, I believe they call them vintage style locking tuners, which are really kind of cool, actually. That I have locking tuners on a different Stratocaster of mine, and they're okay. I don't really like them that much. I kind of put them on there just as an experiment. But these actually, I think, fit the guitar really well and make a lot of sense. So you don't get the locking tuners on the SE version. The hardware type is listed as nickel. Probably very similar. I mean, we're just talking about stamped metal parts here, really, to be honest. The nut, here's another difference. Synthetic bone on the SE, real bone, supposedly, on the Silver Sky. And then the pickguard, they list it as ABS plastic. I don't know that that's really of note. Now, the pickups, this is going to be interesting. Nobody's heard these yet. These are listed as 635 JM, quote unquote, S. The original pickups are listed as 635 JM. Okay. So, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion in the press release as to what exactly the S means, how they were voiced. I'm sure that, John Mayer still had some input, or at least this version had some influence on the SE. We'll just have to see what that really means. Obviously, there is going to be a difference. At least there should be. As somebody who owns the more expensive one, you kind of hope that there is some type of difference. But I will say, Paul Reed Smith, while this guitar is going to be made in Indonesia, this one's made in the United States of America. I mean, they come really close with a lot of their SE stuff. It's really nothing to just kind of dismiss. So none of this is to say that the SE Silver Sky is going to be a bad guitar by any means. Trust me, when it comes to bolt-on Strat style guitars, you don't need to spend $2,500 on a guitar. You absolutely do not need to. There are some incredible Squires out there. There are that really play well. I mean, you're going to hear arguments about the wood, the poplar doesn't resonate the same as the alder does. Listen, I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure there's some truth to that, but I don't think, especially on this one, being that as a solid body bolt-on guitar, I don't think you're going to see a big difference, to be honest with you. I think it's going to make people like me who bought the original one feel like, man, I should have waited. I could have had two of these for one of those. That's just my guess. Not great for me or anybody else who bought one, but I mean, then again, whatever. But certainly awesome if you're somebody who's been waiting for the SE, because it is hard to justify a nearly $2,000 or over $2,000, brand new bolt-on solid body electric guitar. I agree with you there. So here's that last picture I was telling you about. The headstock, to me, not only does the truss rod cover look different, but the headstock to me looks a little bit different. There's just something about the angles on it. And that brings me back to a couple of the other things. Some of the John, there's another, a better version of the headstock there. You can see the full thing. I don't know if this is going to sport the John Mayer name. So, if on the heel plate, it says John Mayer model, Silver Sky. This may just say Silver Sky. That could be another one of those things. Does it really matter? No. I mean, it doesn't matter. What does the guitar sound like? How does it play? And do people like it? So that to me could be another difference. Obviously the finishes are going to be probably a different situation. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get a case with this. For a $2,500 guitar, you get it's a great gig bag. Trust me, it's the Paul Reed Smith gig bag is really, really well thought out, and it's really, really nice and protects the guitar nicely. But I mean, it is still a gig bag. I don't think you're going to get that with this guitar. Could be wrong. But that's it. So that's kind of my take on this. Those are the stats as we know them. January 11th, that is the big day. We can just scroll back here. Again, seems like we have 4 colors. And that, to me, is going to be the big distinguishing factor for a lot of people. If you have a color you really like, you're not going to be able to get it in one versus the other. But actually, that's a good point, because you're not going to be able to get these colors, as far as I know, in the higher end model of Silver Sky. So exciting stuff. I think we all knew this was probably coming at some point. We got the teaser a couple weeks ago. Now we've got some really solid stats on it. And January 11th, there's going to be demos. There's going to be video. I'm sure you're going to see stuff from John Mayer. You're going to see stuff from Paul Reed Smith. You're going to see stuff from all sorts of people. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be cool. I hope I can get my hands on one of these, because I would love to A/B this one and maybe the moon white or one of the other colors, and just see, like, what is the real difference? Is there a real difference? There will be some, but is it worth that extra $1,500 that I'm estimating you're going to be paying for the Silver Sky? And will we see a price change in the Silver Sky after the SE comes out? Anyways, that's all I have for you today. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. I don't want to waste time on videos like this with begging you to subscribe, but if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing. I have a ton of John Mayer content. I've got a ton of other music-related things, and I'm a musician and singer myself. So if you like that kind of thing, please do explore the channel, check out the links in the description below, and stick around for more videos in the future.